Welcome to this painting guide on how to paint Nanny Ogg from the Wyrd Sisters. This is the second instalment out of the 3, and you can catch Magrat Garlic's video just before this one. I'm starting off by priming the whole model with black surface primer, making sure to have a nice smooth coating particularly on the dress and hat, as this will also serve as a base coat for them. Next, I'm lightly going over the raised areas of the dress and hat with German grey, paying close attention to the centre of each raised area. I'm using Dawnstone on top in the same way, just making sure that the German grey is still visible on the outer areas. You can touch up with each of those as you see fit. For the skin, I'm doing a base coat of Cadian Fleshtone in 3 thin coats. Building up a relatively pale colour directly on top of black can be tricky, which is why an extra coat or 2 may be needed. Don't worry if it's not perfect, as we will be building on top of this. To thin your layers appropriately, you can use the knuckle method. A tutorial for this is in the free base coating PDF guide on my Patreon. The link will be in the description. Next, I'm using Skrag brown for the recesses of the skin, blocking out where the shadows go. And then using some Mournfang brown to make it even darker. On the areas that are likely to be more red, such as the cheeks and nose, etc., I'm using a thin layer of Bugmans glow. I'll be blending them together with the airbrush, so I'm covering up all other areas with masking tape. I'm using Cadian Fleshtone in the airbrush to try and start to merge everything together, going back over with Bugmans glow, with a little bit of dark rust in the shadow areas. Making sure to go back over with Bugmans and Cadian to maintain a high level of contrast. I wanted it to be quite red, as she is a very jolly character and has had lots to drink. Once happy, I took the masking tape off. For the hands, I'm starting off with Mournfang brown, starting to lift some colour with Bugmans glow. Next, I'm masking off the areas around the hands, and airbrushing Cadian Fleshtone on top. Once happy, I can then take the masking tape off. I went round the edges where there was some overspray with German grey. For the hair, I'm starting off with a base coat of Dawnstone, and then starting to highlight the edges with light grey, and also using very thin layers on the centre of the bubbles, remembering the use of shapes that we briefly touched upon earlier, slowly building up coverage as you go towards the centre of each bubble. Next, I'm doing the same but slightly thinner with a mix of Dawnstone and silver grey, and going over the bubbles again with just silver grey. To deepen some of the recesses, I'm using some dark rust around the creases, and then silver grey again to blend it together. I use German grey to lightly touch up the edges. For the wood, I'm starting off by base coating with dark rust, and highlighted in the centre with Mournfang brown. I then did a wash over the top with Agrax Earthshade. I'm not sure what happened to the footage, but I free-handed the wood grain on top with Skrag brown, and then I base coated the rim with Leadbelcher. For the lace around her dress, I used Nocturnal Red. I used the same on her hat, and highlighted the red with Gory Red. For the pin on her hat, I base coated it in German grey and then went over the top with Leadbelcher. For the inside of the mouth, I used a mixture of Old Rose and Nocturnal Red, and used Old Rose on its own for the lips. I also used Old Rose to fill in around the eyes and to serve as a waterline, before painting the whites of the eye with silver grey, as well as the tooth. I'm going over the tooth with Skeleton Horde to tint it to a more natural colour. For the irises, I'm starting by making a small dot with dark rust in the centre, and then I'm doing an even smaller dot with Mournfang brown. Make sure to use your brush at a slight angle to stop the bristles from splitting. You can then do an even smaller dot in the centre with black, or you can use a fine liner for a slightly easier time. For the eyebrows, I'm base coating them in German grey, doing a line in the centre with Dawnstone, and then doing an edge highlight with light grey. Once happy, I'm then using a gloss varnish all over to lock everything in, and then a matte varnish to soften everything down. And then for the base, I'm covering it in black surface primer, layering a gloss, and a matte varnish, and finally hand painting some gloss back onto the mouth, eyes, wood and metal areas. And that is the model complete.